Hello everyone, dear Audi fans and motorsport enthusiasts. My name is Misha and I'm extremely excited to welcome you here live at Audi Tradition, where we are going to be telling you everything you want to know about the Audi R18 TDI RP4, the winning car of Le Mans. By we, I mean Stefan and Timo. And before I let the gentlemen introduce themselves, I would like to let you know that although we're here indoors and not wearing a mask, we all have been vaccinated and tested today, so it's all safe. We will still be keeping distance from each other, but not from this car. So first of all, Stefan, over to you.
Oh, me first?
Yes,
no problem.
We already had Timo for previous two episodes.
Okay, understood. So yes, thank you, Misha, for having me here. To be honest, I haven't been in a long time. I haven't seen this car in 7 years. But anyways, my name is Stefan Dreyer. I'm responsible for the technical development. I've been with Audi Sport since '99, so actually ever since we started Le Mans, and yeah, it's very nice to see the car again. Thank you very much.
Nice, thank you. And Timo, for people who are just joining us, a quick word about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Timo Witt. I'm head of the historical collection here at Audi Tradition. And again, a very warm welcome to all of us.
Well, let's talk about the car, the Audi R18 TDI. Stefan, since you were so close to it, so responsible, I can see it on your face that you're very happy to be reunited with the car again. Tell us more about it. How did this come about? Is it the evolution, revolution? What is this?
Well, first of all, I have to say, back then in 2014, I was basically responsible for the engine operation on track and also on the dynos, and therefore I can talk a lot about powertrain. I can talk a little bit about the car, and well, the first thing you see is the car looks very small.
Yes,
and to be honest, I think the length is 4 meter 60 or something, so it's actually smaller than an A4. The width is more or less the same with 1 meter 90. The height obviously is much lower. And in the rules, there were certain volumes where you had to fit your parts in, and obviously you wanted to be as small as possible and as aerodynamic as possible. So that was the challenge, and I think they're beautiful cars.
Yeah, but that's a very good point that you mentioned. The car is small, and usually when you see pictures of these cars, for our perception, they seem to be big, and that's usually because we compare them to the normal street cars where we base the size on the windshield. So you think you'll be able to fit like a family in there.
So that's not possible, this I can tell you.
But it's actually a quite small car because it's only one-seater, and actually it's a right-hand drive car.
It's a right-hand drive car, and probably you want to know the reason for it. And yeah, it's not such an easy question. When you think of a monocoque, you have to have a certain size, but you want it to be as narrow as possible. So on a right-hand side car, as you have only two pedals, gas and brake, you need a footrest. So it makes more sense to have the footrest towards the inside of the car, so you don't have to, get extra width on the monocoque. So that was the reason for it.
Now, we have already the first question coming in, a very interesting one that I also wanted to know, is the choice for the diesel powertrain. And the question is actually, the diesel choice was made due to lower consumption, right? And didn't FIA introduce the BOP to remove that advantage later on?
Well, the diesel story started actually in Le Mans in 2006. And some of you probably remember we started with V12, then we went to V10, we went to V6, and then obviously there still was a V6. I can talk about it a little bit later. But the diesel, back then it was the technology. I still believe it was the right decision to go that route because it's very, very effective. And I mean, at the end with this car, as it was efficiency based and efficiency regulated, we were at specific consumption less than 180 grams per kilowatt hours, which are really, really impressive figures. And I think maybe later we can have a look on the engine. I can explain a little bit more. But I mean, back then we were convinced by the diesel concept as it was, as you say, efficient, low fuel consumption. And in 2014, it was the first year when it changed to an energy formula. So for us, then it made even more sense. And so, I mean, I'm convinced it was the right way.
Before we go to the engine, let's talk a bit about the front.
Yeah.
We have already the wheels dismounted on the front, so we can talk a bit about the brakes there.
Yeah,
of course, the car is not that big because it's a small. I mean, the car is not that big, and therefore the brakes are also not that big.
Yeah.
But are the brakes also reduced in size because you have the kinetic energy, the recuperation system?
That's an interesting question, because when we started with hybrids in 2012, we were right at the beginning of the development. The brake size was actually standard. So if the hybrid system would have failed, we still could have raced. We just needed to put on some blanking so the temperature is up. But with this car, as we were, like this and competing against the others, the brake size was actually reduced. So if we would have had a problem with that car with the hybrid system, pit now, and repair. It's the end of story. If you, So.
Well, yeah, squeezing all the last bits and extras.
And maybe another interesting thing is it has an IBS system. It's an intelligent braking system. And what that does is, you have hydraulic braking standard, and you obviously have the braking from the e-motor. And as this feels different for the driver, an intelligent braking system makes it feel seamless, let's call it. So he doesn't feel the difference. And you have to have, while you brake, a good feeling, a good aero platform. So also the suspension was linked to the system. So it was always flat and always spot on when you brake. Lots of confidence in the car.
Wow. That's cool. I would love to experience it myself.
Me too. But anyways.
Well, let's not talk about the sad things then.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about maybe the aerodynamics. The front nose resembles pretty much the Formula One car.
Yeah, very similar, very narrow nose, let's call it. And actually what was new on that car, let me move around, and I'm not sure if the camera can catch it, but underneath that thing, there was a front wing. Basically, same philosophy as a rear wing, and we used it as a setup tool, to adjust for downforce, for all the track dependencies. And also underneath, I'm not sure if you see it with your camera, we had barge boards, and the barge boards directed the flow behind the wheels towards the underfloor. So aerodynamic, I mean, it was so high sophisticated. There were tons of aerodynamics working on the car because, at the end, that made the difference.
And it's also very important because you have these open wells here to help to escape the air to avoid lift. Yeah,
that is another interesting question, because the cars are so fast, and if you go through Porsche curves at 290 entry and 250 plus, if you come sideways and lose the car, and at high yaw, the car is almost like a wing, and it wants to lift up, and so those openings in the wheel arches, front and rear, prevents that quite effectively. A lot of development work was put in. It was all about safety for the driver. And as you know, we had some serious crashes in the past, but luckily and thank God, everything worked out well.
Yeah. Well, let's move to your specialty, to the back.
Oh, yes, the back is good. Maybe they can open it.
That would be nice.
Now I come into play and help a little bit. Let's lift it up a little bit. Take it up.
I mean, as you can see,
wow,
it's not as easy, and we are not the trained mechanics, but as it is so lightweight, it tends to bend, and it's not so easy to do.
Yeah.
If the camera can show that very quick, you see how tight this material is.
Yeah. But I'm looking at this. It's the first time that I'm seeing this engine, this powertrain unit up close. And unfortunately, our episode is only 20 minutes, but I can stand here for hours just looking and admiring every single bolt and screw and connector and everything. And we have tons of questions actually coming in about the engine, so we can talk about even longer. So let's start with one actually that's coming in from YouTube. How does the hybrid system compare with hybrid system in the F1 cars in similar era?
Similar era,
or maybe nowadays even. Like, let's talk about the actual because it's not only by hybrid. Nowadays, when you think of the hybrid of the production cars or the street cars, you only think, okay, you have a battery and you have the brake regen. But this car had a lot more to it.
Yeah, and I think the best way is I start explaining you how this car worked. So the direct link to Formula One is difficult for me because I'm obviously not a specialist. But let's start with this car. So on the front, you have the electrified front axle. You have a center MGU all the way up front in the monocoque. It had back then 170 kilowatts, if I remember correctly. And the storage system was not a battery as used in the Formula One. Back then we used a flywheel energy.
Yeah, so directly mounted on the
exactly.
flywheel.
And that had about 600 kilojoules, if I remember correctly. So the front was purely electric, 170 kilowatts. The rear, the V6 engine, the diesel engine, it had a 120-degree bank angle with a big turbocharger. We had about 400 kilowatts of power. So the system power was 570 if you add it up. But don't forget, we still wanted to do lap times as the cars before. We had the efficiency formula, so it was very difficult to achieve those lap times, but at the end, the cars were incredibly fast. So talking about Formula One, the way I understand it, back then, I'm not so sure, but now with the power unit, obviously you have an MQK system, you have an MQH system, which, by the way, we developed actually for this car. We had
MGH means the heat regeneration.
Exactly, recovery from the exhaust gases. And we had it developed, we tested it, but then it was just not durable enough because of the short development time, and we actually skipped it and didn't run it in Le Mans. But we had it developed. It was with Garrett and Magnetti Marelli and us together. It was a really awesome development, but we just couldn't do it. And at Le Mans, you have to be one thing, reliable.
Yeah.
If you're not reliable, end of story.
Yeah. Well, do you think like this system might still make its way into other forms of motorsport, or maybe like even production cars at some point?
Yeah, I mean, heat engine recovery is very smart because obviously you recover energy, but there's always a balance because obviously it increases the exhaust pressure, therefore reduces the efficiency and the power, of course. So you have to find the right balance. But overall, of course, to recover energy is always good. Front, rear, exhaust, whatever.
There's another question coming in. So is there any cooperation with Porsche and LMP to share parts to reduce costs, or is it completely two separate programs?
Is this now the old days or the new days? That's the question, yeah. So the old days, no, we were basically... yes, we were one company, the VW, but on track we didn't like each other so much, I would say. No, it's the truth. And at the end, everybody wanted to win, and we pushed as hard as we could to be the number one. And so in the future, I mean, maybe it's a little bit early to talk about this, but yeah, for sure, we will try to use as much synergies as possible.
And then another question is was the engine built specifically for this car, or is there some derivation from a normal street car?
No, this was a 100% prototype engine, purely built for racing, purely built for this car, no other use for this. So spot on for this application.
Like all the other LMP car as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Correct, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think is there any chance of diesel fuel coming back into endurance racing?
Oh, difficult. I mean, you know, it's a difficult question to answer. If you ask me, I would like to see it again, but I think as it goes now, it's quite difficult. And as you know, we are concentrating a lot on electrified powertrains, as you can also see on our new projects. So that's our main focus. Let's put it this way.
Well, let's step away slightly from the engine, as much as I don't want to, because it's actually amazing. First of all, before I open the door, what is this?
Yeah, I brought this because I thought you might like it. It's a fuel flow meter.
Okay.
That's the one that was from Jill. We had two kinds, Centronics and Jill. And as the whole series was energy-based, obviously you had amount of fuel you can use per lap, but also the fuel flow was restricted. So in the car, and you see it over there, there's a little box, with a little opening. You had 3 of those. Yeah. 2 feet, 1 return. Okay. As we had the return on the engine. So the difference made the flow. And the reason why we had 2, going to the engine is because 1 for redundancy. So this is what it was all about. We spent months, hours on the dyno, trying to understand, trying to be spot on, because it was monitored by the FIA. And if you were above the limit, penalty, DQ. Come to the pits, hello. So yeah, there was a lot of effort was put into this part.
Someone was paying close attention to the parts,
Yep.
and they see a carbon fiber gearbox.
Oh yeah, carbon fiber.
How much
gearbox.
weight is it, and how much do you save to in comparison to conventional?
To be honest, I cannot remember the weight in my head. It said it's something like 60 kilos, but don't quote me on this, please.
Yeah.
But anyways, the car is 870 kilos. Yeah, this car was 870 kilos. So diesel engine, hybrid system, 7-speed gearbox, you know, it all weighs. So we went like this on every part, carbon gearbox, fully loaded, because you see the suspension is directly linked to the carbon. And yeah, it's you know, lightweight, state of the art back then. It's really awesome.
We get one more question from our YouTube channel. Fantastic engineering. Do Audi have a museum where they can see it themselves, like this?
Museum is Timo?
So this is kind of my thing. Yes, we do have a museum here in Ingolstadt. It's called Museum Mobile. It belongs to Audi. You can find it at the Audi headquarter place, where we at the moment have like 14 different racing cars on exhibition, and also including some LMP cars, the earlier stage from the R8 until the 2016 LMP car. They're running there for display.
Yeah, when this car is going to be on display, make sure to put it without the engine cover on. Because
that would be a good tip to do. So maybe for amount of time we can do that until the dust hits it all, you know, and you need to clean it again. But yes, at some point we will do that for sure. Yeah.
Well, final thing, because we're running close to the end of the show, I'd like to open up this small, tiny door. There are actually 2 doors, but there is no. You cannot have a passenger with you.
Well, or a very small passenger, let's put it this way.
I can maybe take my dog with me there.
Yeah, that's the maximum, I would say. But to me, it's always impressive when I see this and imagine the driver sitting in there going 330 down Hyundai Straight at foggy conditions or rainy conditions. I mean, it's very scary. I think Timo is better.
I'm going to try to take off the steering wheel in the back. There we go.
Ah, perfect.
So the first thing that I see, 6 pedals.
Yeah. We need many fingers.
Upshift, downshift, upshift twice, upshift 3 times. So what are these for?
I mean, first of all, I would say the steering wheel is a piece of art. I mean, there's so many functions and dials and hybrid strategy modes, etc. But concerning your question, so one was upshift, one was downshift. Then you had ASR, you know, the anti-slip function. Yeah. Which you could control with up and down. And then I believe 2 pedals were for clutch, because some drivers preferred the right hand, some drivers preferred the left hand. If I remember correctly, you know, I'm getting old, it's been 7 years, so I think this is how it was, yeah.
Nice.
You know, I mean, that thing is nice. And
it's soft, I like it.
and just imagine going 300, the engineers tells you, you know, go to mix blah, 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 or to map blah, 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 and then do it at high speed.
You need to do the map
with your gloves. And I mean, to me, they are.
So by mix, it's like air to fuel ratio or
you know, map strategy.
Wow.
Tons of functions, but.
All right, I'm gonna put this back.
Just put it.
I'll just put it on the seat and have a look through a couple of questions, because we're running low on time, unfortunately. Yeah, I know. Oh, that's good. So any technologies developed within LMP1 project have been utilized in any of the brands or the current racing series, like GT3, GT4, or maybe even WRX?
Well, to answer this question, I think the heads of our employees, honestly, because we built up so much know-how with this project that, you know, we are really able to build cars from a white sheet of paper. And you'll see this soon with our future project. I mean, as you know, we are going back to Dakar. This car we built from scratch. And so I wouldn't really, you know, the specific area there, the specific part here. It's the general know-how, the brain inside. Yeah. This is what makes us strong.
I am very sorry to have to say that we need to stop, because there's so many cool questions, but I guess maybe we need to do another episode on this car again, or maybe one of the other Le Mans cars. Dear fans, enthusiasts, all of you who like Le Mans or any other motorsport, we still have 1 episode to go. What we're going to be talking about, the DTM car. Yes, the Turbo DTM car. So register for that, tune in, and we'll see you in a bit. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm and all your questions, and see you in a bit.
Thank you. Bye.